Peace, peace, peace. So we back once again. It's your boy Juice, one old joke, gritty, politics as usual, the podcast. First, let me talk about my book real quick. Street Skelzy, Knock 'em Out the Box. You can go to Amazon and read it. You could actually read it for free if you don't have the money. I'ma still get the acknowledgement, so I'm good with it. Um, it's a story about two brothers on opposite sides of the law who have to team up in order to track down their father's killer. So this is a murder mystery. This is not a hood come up story. This is a hood murder mystery. Something different to add to our genre of writing, which is urban novels. So this is my contribution. I've written 6 books so far. I'm actually in the mix of hiring a ghostwriter, not for my novels, but for this history right here. I'm actually putting out a book called Job in the Stone. It's a history book, basically it takes you through the Bible and it giving you through historical context in describing what's going on. So as you can see, I'm not eloquent in speech when it comes to that, and so it would come across also in my writing style. So I decided sometime this week to go back on Fiverr. I've been, going through a couple of pages and seeing who I wanted. So I'm gonna go back sometime this week and approach somebody on being a writer for that. So now, mind you, I got all of the notes and everything, so I will be getting joint credit. It won't be as if, the person, but I have to be honest with myself in order for it to be a great read. You know what I mean? I'm not. I'm hood. I want this to go beyond the hood. So I want somebody who can articulate that in a way that I'm comfortable, that it expresses me while it's clear for everybody, not just a certain, class of people. So that's just what I'm putting out there for that. So then let's get into this right here. All right, take that down. Oh, let me put up this again, which is my ADOS feeds. All right, so this is the stuff that Twitter is talking about when it comes to ADOS. You know, so we have these Super and Nikki, whatever ADOS. There's different things. I'm not controlling it, so I didn't put nothing in the quay. I just have things coming up and let it do what it do. You know what I mean? So that is that. So let's get into what we talking about here. I want to bring up we continuing off from where we was yesterday, right? So we're talking about the abolitionisms of colonial America and the contributors to this. So we also went through the fact that remember 70% of these group of people, right, the Quakers and all of that, they owned slaves. So even though they was establishing a community, meaning that I ain't gonna say split because 70% is not a split. There's a group that split off from there. You know what I mean? Well, I'm not gonna say it's not an equal a split. You know, so the 70%. Pardon me. Let me see if I can messed up chair real quick. Hold on. So what we're saying is like 70% to me is not a split. I'm sorry. 70% is 70%, and 30% is meaning that you a minority. And even in that minority, you would have to question why are they, feeling that way? Would they be feeling that way if they had the opportunity to be a part of the 70%, meaning financial or whatever the case may be? So, inside that, we also covered how, Georgia was never meant to be a state that held slaves. It wasn't supposed to be a slave state. But you got to also keep in mind he's pleading, the person who established Georgia is also pleading with his fellow Quakers to stay out of the slave trade because that's their natural nature as well. So it was a movement within a group of people. So don't turn around and try to give the whole group credit for a small number, even though their fight and the way that they operated did end slavery in that form. The whips and chains. It did end that. So you got to give credit to where credit is due, but don't over credit shit, is what I'm saying. Because the other 70% were also a part of the group that came up with the understanding of, well, then if we can't utilize them, they got to go. And so, again, we're back on the Back to Africa movement. The Back to Africa movement was established by these people. You got to remember, like, even people like Frederick Douglass and these people, they were not cool with it. They were not with that understanding due to the fact that, yo, listen, I'm here. I don't know nothing else. We all in America, but me going from New York and going down to Atlanta, that's not the same. It's not the same people, not the same train of thought. Shit. The bigotry and the prejudice just due to the fact that I was from up north was enough. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you, throughout the United States, the only place as a New Yorker I ever felt comfortable outside of New York, and I don't know if you ever felt comfortable in New York, but leaving New York, the only place I truly ever felt like it wasn't any of that ill feelings was Virginia on the East Coast. I've never felt more welcomed in another state than Virginia. So I'm making that statement, and it's funny because Virginia plays a large part in all of this talk as well. But and that's why you see like the red bones and all of that out there. Um, but inside of that, right, inside of this system that's set up of basically trying to get rid of the slaves. You know what I mean? Because you got to remember, like I said, there's a whole system that did not want you around. And then you had another system that was like, I'm not going nowhere due to the fact of common sense would tell you I'm not African in the sense of African. Like, just like I'm in America does not make me a Georgian. And it's hard to understand that. Like, just because to them, I'm a New Yorker. When you in Atlanta and you sound like me, I don't give a fuck if you was from Kentucky. I mean, not Kentucky, like Connecticut, Jersey, Philly. If you sound close enough to this, the first thing they gonna say is, "Oh, you from New York? You from New York?" And you like, "Nah, I ain't from New York." You know what I mean? Or in some people cases, you know what I mean? So if you know that right here in America, the sense, the spirit of being African is with every black person. But I'm tainted like a bird. You know, like how they tell you like a bird falls out of the nest and it tells you don't take it, don't touch it. Or, like the mother would reject it because it got your scent on it. That's the same thing with African Americans when it comes to Africans, or in reverse. It's one can say they are African by the land, right? And even though they have been tainted with white America, I mean, with white Africans, or should we say just European, poisoning, right? They have been affected by Europeans and giving European logic, you know what I mean, the African way. And so when you see the pastors and all of them, the African black, you see the same, European hustle. So you know that they are affected just like blacks in America who are affected by white America. Because when you look at African places, or South American places, and these in places where the European influence was not strong. I mean, it was there. White people come in, doing their little um, peace corps and all of that, but you can look and see the essence of those people, and you know that you are whitenized, like Europeanized or Americanized or whatever type of nized, when you look at your natural element and you look down on it. When you look at it with a level of discomfort, like if you looking at Ethiopians, or like back in the days when he had the pictures with the babies with the big stomachs and the flies, and you look at it in the same way that a European looks at it, like he's coming in there with this super savior, and you know what I mean? And oh, I can never see myself in Africa and all of that. That's why African people would reject you, because you are tainted with European. And don't get it twisted, they are too. That's why when you don't appeal to their European acknowledgement, they look at you like two Europeans looking at each other. Oh, he one of them New Yorkers who think you know what I mean? And so the slave takes on the slave master's imagery. And so when an African slave sees an American slave, it's like two dogs, two pit bulls. That's just a fact. And a lot of people don't want to see it because they don't want to understand what is the dynamics. We are judging each other off of European standards. That's just the truth. We in America, we chase Gucci, whatever the case may be. When I look at Africa, they trying to make it come up through the same Jesus, putting their hands in the evangelist, because that's how they had them. So you can see the European. And so when they come over here, they still Muslim or Christian, because this was what the European or the Arab gave to them. There's very little parts of Africa or Central America or anywhere, like there's certain places where they still kept that tradition. Shit, you think about the Aboriginals out in Australia. Even out there, you got some who's been compromised. And once you have that compromise sent on you, people become territorial, just like their European counterparts. Or masters, should I say. They ain't no counterparts. They don't even acknowledge you. You acknowledging them. You acknowledging them. They not acknowledging you. They doing them because they controlling whatever they controlling. You want to control them by controlling your own people and having this snotty, uppity approach to things. And I'm like I said, all of this is all a part of the same thing. So don't think that I'm just throwing stuff out there. No, I'm a, always, you know me, I'm gonna pull it back and connect every last part. These things that shooting out, oh, they shooting out for a reason. Part of me, got some pictures flying up. Gotta stay alert of that. Right? Let me see here. Okay. I just want y'all to see some of these pictures, and I don't want to be interrupted myself. So, you know what I mean? All right. So let's get back into this. I gave you a quick lecture on the mentality of these people. You know what I mean? How they don't even understand they embracing of their European masters. Right? So we talked about the sister. So where we at here? Jenny Slew. Okay. According to historian Stephen Pincus, many of the colonial, pardon me, lectures worked to enact laws that would limit slavery. The provincial lectures of Massachusetts Bay, as noted in historian Gary B. Nash, approve a law prohibiting the importation and purchase of slaveries by Massachusetts citizens, and the loyalist governor of Massachusetts, Thomas Hutchinson, vetoed the law, an action that prompted angered reaction from general public. Influential Fairfax resolver called for an end of the wicked, cruel, and unnatural Atlantic slave trade. The Loyalist, let's go into this. Loyalists were American colonists who remained loyal to British crown during the American Revolution, often referred to as Tories, Royalists, or Kingsmen. At the time, they were opposed by the Patriots by supported the revolution and called them persons of immaculate liberties. I don't know. This just basically that. This is how within our community we just call them coons, kind of like they act like these are derogatory words, but in reality, it's just our labeling of the same thing. Like you call them loyalists or you know, um, twenties or whatever the case may be. I think those were possibly derogatory statements as well, right? So I'm just saying, maybe these titles are being attacked now because they want to remain hidden and prevent you from separating them from anybody else. That's it. And this is like because, like I said, I'm also addressing the concept of black on black crime and all of these other things due to a group of people who would tell you they are not black. Right? Keep that in mind. So we're about to take a break in like 15 seconds, and then I'm gonna go into the next part of this. right, so we in the building again. We back. All right. So, pardon me here. Bring this up. All right, you hear me? All right. Um, let's go to this right here. All right, right. I just be wanting to make sure that I can be heard while also remaining visible. I mean, so here we go with this. First position. Okay, this is just some news articles. Okay. During the formation of the country, the Society of the Relief of Free Negroes unlawfully held in bondage, Pennsylvania Abolishing Society was the first American abolishing society formed in 14 April 1775 in Philadelphia, primarily by Quakers. So that's what I'm saying when I think of Germantown. Is that where the foundation is? And, is this another reason why you have, City of Brotherly Love? You know, and if that's the case, then the brothers out there be wilding because if they don't know their history, I used to live in Philly. I used to get money in Philly. So, I could speak for Philly, you know? American Revolutionary. The society suspended operations during the American Revolutionary War and was reorganized in 1784 by Benjamin Franklin as the first president. Rhode Island Quakers Association with Moses Brown were among the first of Americans to free slaves. Benjamin Rush was another leader, as were many Quakers. John Woolman gave up most of his business in 1776 to devote himself to campaigning against slavery along with other Quakers. You got to respect the Quakers in this sense, due to the fact that, like I said, if you had a population of 70 fucking percent owned as slaves. So you got to give them credit for going in. You know what I mean? You got to give them credit for that. One of the first articles advocating the emancipation of slaves and the abolition of slavery was written by Thomas Paine, titled African Slavery in America. It is It expired on, no, my fault. It appeared on March. I hate when they do that. 1775 in the postscription of the Pennsylvania Journal and Weekly Advertiser. My fault. I thought I had this up for y'all. I hate doing things and y'all don't be able to see it as well. That way, if anybody wants to correct me on something or even make sure that they heard it correctly, I like to make sure that I don't dictate all of this. The Constitution has several provisions which accommodated slavery, although none used the word, passed unanimously by Congress and the Confederation in 1787. The Northwest obedience forbids slavery in the Northwest Territory, a vast area of future Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, and Wisconsin, which slavery had been legal, but population was sparse. Meaning that it was legal, they just didn't have enough people out there to to hold it down. American abolitionism began very early, well before the United States was founded as a nation, as early laws passed by Roger Williams and Samuel Gorton, because of contradictions, their Protestants, okay, because my fault, because it contradicted their Protestant beliefs, abolished slavery, but not temporarily. What is this? Indenture servitude. So not the indentured servitudes. So basically, you could sign because indentured servitude is basically you signing up for that. Like, I'll be your servant for 7 years or whatever the case may be. So it's saying, yeah, you could do it yourself, but slavery itself was not to be prohibited, right? It's a form of labor in which a person is contracted to work without slavery, no, without salary for a specific number of years, right? So, like say you loved a woman, right, and you wanted her. And those times you could go into indentured servitude. I believe you pay off like for 7 years or whatever. You work for like 7 years or whatever the case may be, and you can get your freedom on or work off somebody else's freedom if need be. You know what I mean? So these were the things that was taking place, and you have to respect those people. See, those people go back for their own. And so I don't consider those the ADOSs. You know what I mean? People who are free and willing to go back, and it doesn't sound like an ADOS to me. ADOS wants it all. They want you away from them. They use the other half of this system in which I'm about to get into, right? Motives. Historian James M. McParson in 1994 defined abolitionist as one who, before Civil War, had agitated for their immediate, unconditional, and total abolition of slavery in the United States. He notes that many historians have used the broader definition without emphasis on immediate. Thus, he does not include opponents of slavery such as Abraham Lincoln and the Republican Party. They called for the immediate end and expansion of slavery before 1861. You had the religious, right, the great, and began with the Quakers, then moved to other Protestants and with the Second Great Awakening, right, was a Protestant religious revival during the early 19th, 17th century in the United States. The Second Great Awakening, which spread religious thought, revivals, and emotions, preachings, sparked a number of reform movements. So, even the way that you experience religion now had the reset. So, when you hear people right now talking about the Great Reset, understand that this has always been happening. Like not always, but these pockets in time, but they're placed there for a reason. Don't think that this shift is not a universal effect of grab, the grab. And I'll get into that. A lot of people will see something, but they don't understand the great picture. I'm really just breaking down right now just um the understanding of one what's taking place today, how a group of people within these Masonic orders are making the shift for you. Understand the history, whether it be the Great Reset and whether it be the spiritual, the religious reset, all of these things was taking place at that time, right? Then we move up to like the 60s and you can see it again. So now, here we are now. And if you are aware, you should be able to see all of these effects taking place again. And so, as you seen the quote unquote fight at that time was the blacks. Then when we go into the 60s, in my opinion, even though the blacks still had gripes and all of that, that was the feminist movement. The hippies, the women's, all of that was really because, they felt like they addressed the black plight, even though there was still black things. And so, in order to keep the push, you need everybody in it. So they lent a hand and let the blacks get their voice. We acknowledge certain things, but in reality, you would see that whole thing dropped. But you will see the feminist movement take hold at that time. That was really the shift at that time. Everything that you see in now was the feminist gay agenda being set up from then. And so you wouldn't have saw it because you was so busy blinded by all of these other turmoils and everybody arguing and complaining. You had the Latins, you had the women, you had the hippies, you had the blacks, you understand what I'm saying? So inside of that, while everybody is caught up in their own, nobody is really understanding the placing of mindsets within these groups. So it's happening right now through these organizations in their quote unquote discomfort, but this is all by design, right? The South after the 1804s, the institution remains solid in the South. The region custom social beliefs evolved and studied defense of slavery in response to the rise of strong anti-slavery stances in the North. In 1835 alone, abolitionists mailed over 1 million pieces of anti-slavery literature to the South, giving rise to gag rules in Congress after the death of mail from Charleston, South Carolina post office, and much back and forth about whether postmasters were required to deliver this mail. According to the postmaster generals, they were not. So at this time, like I said, it was the laws that you see now were established because of these type of things back then. Under the Constitution, the importation of enslaved persons could not be prohibited until 1808. 20 years as the end of the 20 years approached. The act prohibited importation of slavery's sale through Congress with little opposition. President Jefferson supported it, and it went into effect January 1st, 1808. In 1820, the act, okay, so we go sudden emergence, okay, in Americas was the principle opposed to slaveries, philanthropist, right, boom, 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 Anthony Burns, Garrison, immediate and master pastor. Here we go. This is the guy I wanted to see if I'm correct. All right. African American activists and their writings were rarely heard outside of black communities. However, they were tremendously influential on a few sympathetic white people, most prominently the first white activist to reach prominence, worshipful master Lloyd Garrison. So they saying William, but I thought it was worshipful master. All right. Okay. Okay, we're gonna go with William. All right, we're gonna go with that. Was a prominent American Christian, abolitionist, journalist, sufficient, boom, boom. So he's just somebody, right? There we go. Who also was its most effective propagandist. Garrison's efforts to recruit eloquent spokesman led to the discovery of ex-slave Frederick Douglass, who eventually became a prominent activist in his own right. Eventually, Douglass would publish his own worldly distribution about his newspaper, North Star. Right? Understand North Star, right? Movement. In the early 18th, American abolitionist movement split into two camps over the question of whether the United States Constitution did or did not protect slavery. Right? Um, let's see. Yeah, I'm trying to really just get y'all into national law, right? Okay. The system of law based on close observation of human nature and based on values and the human nature and can be enhanced and applied and depends according to social contract. A moral inclusive philosophy is a social contract is a theory of model and originate during the age of enlightenment and usually concerns the legitimacy of authority in the state over individuals. Social contract arguments typically posted that individuals have consent. All right. They outside the contract scope of legitimate authority and thereof should be abolished. Another split in the abolitionist movement was along class lines. Right? Republicans Robert Dale Holmes and Francis Wright stood a stark contrast to the political and prominent exile abolitionists such as individuals Arthur Chap and evangelist Brother Lewis. While the former pair opposed slavery on basis of solidarity of wage slavery and chattel slavery, suggested rejected the view opposing the characterization of northern workers as slaves in any sense. So remember when we talk about, the workplace and you hear people talk about the slave master, and this is the North's. Once you were free of the chattel slavery, you were still a slave. That was their view of it. In the North, they still, so while the South image became what people accepted as freedom, the North still understood that, hey, listen, you keep us inside a certain way, you keep all of the status above us. So all you really trying to do is take the power from those who can establish this. So it's the meek shall inherit the earth type of a thing. You know what I'm saying? Where we'll still control it, but we're gonna control it in a whole different fashion. Right? So Western reverse and institutes and science institutes. Right? So let's slide back out here for a second. Right? Right. I want to get really into the colony, right? Okay, so yeah, I talked to y'all about the American, where the population grew from 60,000 to 300,000 in a matter of 40 years. The American community and abolitionist movement overwhelmingly opposed the project. In most cases, African American families had lived in the United States for generations, and their prevailing sentiment was that they were no more African than white Americans were Europeans. So you had a group of people who stayed here, right? And just basically said, "Now we're not," which I can agree in a sense. Whereas American in the sense as you as European. The only difference is yes, you're still white and I'm still black. Africa meaning a landmass, right? And so, just like you can't be European because you're on American soil, I can't be African because I'm on American soil. In that sense. Which I can agree with. Like, they're not gonna accept me. I'm not that. I don't speak the language. I'm tainted with this shit, just like you are. That's why you broke away from Europe and started America. Where the blacks were supposed to do was break away with like the same objective of the Confederate. Meaning the Confederate said, "Listen, if we win, I tell you what, you let us keep these slaves and y'all have your own." Which basically, was a cold blooded thing. So, you know, they didn't win. Leave it like that. That's what it is. But this is the mentality and the gall that they would approach you. Because clearly you would be up for it. Nobody would approach you like that if you wasn't with it. According to historian Mike Lipson, colonialization provide provided to the giant failure, doing nothing to stem the forces that brought the nation to civil war between 1820 and 1841. Only a few thousand African Americans out of millions in the U.S. immigrated to what would become Liberia. Now, this is, I gotta let you understand how the invasion of our people on our people with the help of the European. Remember, because I told you before they went into Liberia, as far as the black peoples, the white people had already went inside there, set up their encampments, and basically took over Liberia. Said, "You know what? We taking over this whole land right here. And this is where we gonna set up all of the blacks out, to get them out of our land and send them over here. A place where they could speak their own, like they wouldn't have to basically intertwine with the people, but they didn't eradicate the people from that land, so they just made them the authority, meaning the freemen. They made the freemen the authority of the people of a land that was already there. So the white man come in there, bully these people, and then bring his own tainted Negroes into the land. The Tainted Negroes. Let me show you what I mean about the Tainted Negroes. Close to half of them died from tropical diseases, in addition to transportation of the immigrants to the African continent, including the provision of requisite tools and supplies provided very old, proved very expensive. Started in the 1830s, the society was met with great hostility from white abolitionists led by Gerrit Smith, who had supported the society financially, and William Lloyd Garrison, author of Thoughts of African Colonization, in which he proclaimed the society as fraud, right? And so we getting into the revelations of this group. Like I said, to have an objective, and it sounds good because you appealing, and you know, we're this small group, but there was a plot. It was a two-part. Take the power from the 1%. So at that time, you know, the 1% were the slave masters. You know, they just switched it to corporate America. You know, like now it's corporate. But back then, the 1% would be the slave masters. So even though the slave masters had workers and this, that, and the third, a lot of people wasn't happy with that. So they secretly formed a way to free, you know, quote unquote, the blacks. But with this Freemasonic teachings, they also put them still in bondage, mentally, hoodwinked and bamboozled. Right? So the society as a fraud. Now, mind you, this is the insider. This is somebody on the inside. I still got my Twitter going up just so y'all can keep seeing the Twitter. Call, share. Okay, ADOS, Black Americans. 2,000 Christians want to convert to Jews to Christianity. Boom, Hinduism, ADOS. See? They going in all directions, taking over everything. That's Freemasonry for you. According to Garrison and his many followers, the society was not a solution to the problem of American slavery. It actually was helping and was intended to help to preserve it. Like I told you, to shift how you saw slavery mentally versus what it really was. So here goes somebody within, like, ah, man, y'all running game. You know? Growth of slavery in the South. After the invention of the cotton gin in the 1790s, the growth and export of cotton became a highly profitable business. Central to the business was the setting up of plantations, staffed by enslaved labor. Due to the increased demand, imports of African slaves grew until the legal importation was barred in 1808, after which time Maryland and Virginia openly bred slaves, producing children for sale south through brokers such as Franklin and Armsfield. Franklin and Armsfield office was a house which housed the Freedom House Museum, is a historic commercial building in Alexandria, Virginia, built in 1010 and was the first used to provide resident before being converted into the office of the largest slave trading firm in the United States. This is the largest slave trading firm, right? Franklin and Armsfield to plantations owner. The results is a forcible relocation of about 1 million enslaved people to the Deep South. The Africans and African Americans became well established and had children, and the total numbers of the enslaved reached 4 million by the mid 19th century. So, if they knew about, like I said, you basically cattle, and that's why that same Freemasonic symbol was easily used to bump the men off. Because all you got to do is convince the people within that these people are in your way. That's why you hear a lot of them ADOS people, they got beef with these, these claims, they taking this. They'll use all of the talking points of the people that you wondering, like, are you serious? But they'll tell you they're not black. Remember, they the French, they this, the French Canadians and all of this other stuff. They the natives. So when we talk black on black crime, is it really black on black crime? Or do we simply look alike and the mentalities are different? Right? The European does not look like, say, a German. He does not look at a Spaniard as the same as him outside of their being in Europe. Because in Europe, the conflicts happen. So in our community, although we all might be in different levels of this shade, we are not the same because we have different mentalities of where they are. So if I believe I'm Native American and I'm in competition with the African simply because we look alike, or I'm, Caribbean, and even in the Caribbeans we are not alike because somebody had set up this separation, then it's easy to get the people to bump themselves off because that union over there said, you know what? Even though we are under different lands and we are not alike, I could say I'm the most, Aaroness or the whitest and the whatever, but it's still competition within the whiteness. They're not abandoning that. They're just saying who's the master of that crew. Where ADOS is saying, no, we're not like this person, we're not that in this complete separation. Whereas, okay, we're just the most dominant. And so we're going to work forward. And as we work forward, we're going to prove who's the most dominant within our European cultures, what they're saying. So you could be Roman, you could be Greek. And so their thing is, see, I told you, y'all not a factor no more. We the most powerful. So then, you have Germans and, this, whoever was the top at that time is like we the dogs. It's like a pack of wolves. You fight you fight with them, we'll still roll together. And whoever's established as the one, we could have animosity for each other, but we're going to still move forward. So Europeans move like a pack of wolves. And so you might have a lone wolf out there who doesn't want to, play that game. But for the most part, that's the European system, the wolf pack system. We can fight, we can argue, we can have wars within, but we are moving this forward as a unit. And then if we got a lone wolf somewhere, he's still a wolf though. He's still a wolf. He's just a lone wolf. So he ain't team up with anybody else. He's just the lone one of them. And so with that number of free blacks, due to part in manumission efforts sparked by the revolution ideals, Protestant preachers and the abolitionist movement. What's this? There was an expansion of the number of free blacks, many of them born free, even in the North, where slavery was being abolished. Discrimination against free blacks was rampant and often legal. Few states extended citizenships rights to free blacks prior to the 1860s, and the federal government largely controlled by slave power. Referred to receiving political powers of the U.S. federal government held by slave owners during prior to the Civil War, anti-slavery campaigns led by Cedric Douglass, slave. Okay. Never showed any inclination to changing the racial status quo. Even in the North, free blacks were often seen as unwelcome immigrants taking jobs away because they would work for cheap. So we get into ADOS. Is this not the argument of ADOS? Due in part to manumission efforts sparked by revolutionary ideas, Protestant preachers, and the abolitionist movement, there was an expansion, expansions in the number of free blacks, many of them born free, even in the North where slavery was being abolished. Discrimination against free blacks was rampant and often legal. Few states extended citizenship rights to free blacks prior to the 1860s, and the federal government, largely controlled by slave power, never showed any inclination to challenge the racial status quo. Even in the North, free blacks were often seen as unwelcomed immigrants, taking jobs away because they would work for cheaper. I had to repeat that because when you hear ADOS, right, these are their arguments. And so when I say the tainting of white people in the black community, tainting of black people of white people is hard. Some slave owners decided to support immigration following the aborted slave rebellion headed by Gabriel Processor in 1880, and a rapid increase of number of free Americans in the United States in the first decade after the Revolutionary War, and which perceived as threatening. Right? Let's because a lot of people they talk about Nat Turner, right, but they don't understand that there were many of people who put in this work to put the fear in the master. Known as Gabriel is a literary enslaved blacksmith who planned a large slave rebellion in Richmond, Virginia area in the summer of 1880. Right? Well, basically, dudes on the insides ratted on him. Probably this is why you don't hear it, because he was ratted on by his own people and killed. They made a public spectacle of it. I know the story, so I'm just I ain't go into it because I'm trying to continue on. Um, Number of free Africans, the state, the Center Revolutionary War, the ratio of whites to blacks overall was 4-1 between 1790 and 1800. About to go on break in 10 seconds. All right. Now, this next part, like I said, we got a system that of blacks who's working with them. Who's working with them? So when we talk, I'm talking about black on black crime or what we know as black on black crime, but mentally they're not black. So it's not, in their eyes, this rating system doesn't include them because they're not black. And they don't look at you as the same. They look at you like the white man looks at all of us. So within our people, we have a people that look at us like they the white man. While the white man looks at all of us in the same way. But they the lapdogs, so they feel like, okay, we're different. Slave owners decided to support overall. Right. So where it goes right here, the Revolutionary War. Although the ratio of whites to blacks overall was 4-1 between 1790 and 1800s, in some southern counties, blacks were the majority. Slaveholders feared that blacks destabilized their slavery society and created a political threat. Chicanery is at play, with 1790 from 1790 to 1800. The number of free blacks increased from 59,000 to 108,000. I'm leaving out the last numbers. By 1810, there were 180,000 free blacks. So when you saw the mass incarceration and you see all of these things take place, it's to keep those numbers down. When you see the gang wars, which is all Masonic, these are the people who facilitate it because they're not black and they see you as a problem. So they don't have a problem setting up a system within their own system as long as they can control it. So when you walk into these organizations and you see these people that's there, you better find out if they the Masons, the Moors, the Freemen, because they don't like you. You can hear it in their speeches. They don't like you. And they're not black. Remember that. They're not black. So if they don't like you for being black and you expressing blackness and then you call them black, they don't like you. Remember, they're half-breeds. Or at least in there. So you got the whites to the, remember, these are how they got their freedom. They got their freedom coming through that vessel, whether through the women or the male of these other people, whether it be the natives or whether it be the whites. So the last thing they want to do is be associated with that other group, the shameful group. So this is the we're not black logic. Understand where it comes from. When they tell you that, understand, get a chance, look at them and go, here, half breed. Oh, so he doesn't associate it with his black side. And so, but he talks as if we're one. Because I look like him, he could say we're not and get me to relinquish mine because his side of it, he doesn't even want to acknowledge. It's disgraceful, despicable. So once you call them black, they don't like you. It's an argument. It's a beef. Anything that will put you in association with them. Because their white counterpart of themselves is better. It's better. Right? And we got Paul Cuffey. This is another. Now, Paul Cuffey is, I'm going to get into him. Right? Hold on. All right, let's bring this down. So now we get in this understanding that was set in place from then. Remember, the society was a fraud. Those people, the Quakers and all of them, not all, but a large majority of them were just trying to rearrange the status quo and how slavery was, because now you had them mentally. Remember the collar, Freemasonry, hoodwink, bamboozled. These are the sayings that was said and was said for a reason. I'm just giving you why it was said. A person didn't have the time. So when you look at, Farrakhan with the straight hair and, these people, understand. Understand. They the buffer. They the buffer. They that middle zone. And sure, they hate their master at times because hey, master won't acknowledge their European or whiteness or whatever it is. So yeah, you could be angry, but you better understand that system it sounds like it's for you. It's not for you, man. That's all Masonic, man. That's all Masonic. So what we got here? Early colonization in Africa. In the 1886, a British organization, the Committee in Black Relief of Black Poor, launched an effort to establish the Sierra Leone Province of Freedom, a colony in West Africa from London's Black Poor. The the enterprise gained the support of British government, which also offered relocation to black loyalists who had been resettled in Nova Scotia, where they were subject to harsh weather and discrimination from some white Nova Scotians. Jamaican Maroons were also deported to the colony alongside former slaves freed from Royal Navy after the Atlantic slave trade was abolished by Britons in 1807. Right. Now, they say the Jamaican Maroons, but the Maroons were actually more than just Jamaica, but the Jamaican Maroons were one of the few who set up Cameroon, right? Now, Nova Scotia, if you know that, how could they have ever had peace out there? The Dutch are like in the top three slave expediters. They celebrate like blackface as a holiday. Understand that. There was never going to be any peace over there. And like I said, the white Europeans always understood their nature. So they're, and pay in mind, pay attention. These organizations, right? You got the Committee for the Relief of Black Poor, right? You have these societies, but their main mission, that's how you know the Freemasonry part, was to get rid of the blacks. The cattle was used. We used you. Go now. Because if you stay, we're not going to treat you right. We're going to always look at you as the cattle you were. So on one side, that's their humanitarian efforts. Their most humanitarian thing was to tell you, bye. See you later. Holla. We'll get at you at another time. And that's it. That was their level of being humanitarian, right? Now, with that, they said, you know what? We have an offspring, right? We got some people who's been laying with these white women, right? And we had some of the free blacks who came through white women. You know what I mean? So the black man raping the black women, and the white woman, embracing the black man for whatever reason, right? Even though she owned slaves and all of that as well. So don't think that it was this cozy free ride. But nonetheless, right? These are the ways that a person was obtaining their freedom. So, of course, when they went and set up these two places, Cameroon and Liberia, these were the people who was, now Cameroon is a little bit different than Liberia, only in the sense that there was a lot more negotiation, meaning that there were more runaway slaves, more people giving it up that went to Cameroon than went to Liberia. Like Cameroon was more for like the runaway slaves, those who, they set up deals like, yo, listen, we'll do this, right? And that's why Acapulco out in Jamaica is still established as a maroon sovereign land. Like in Jamaica, this is sovereign land, for the Maroons, because they still never relinquished theirs. Those who went over there, saw that as, I want to get back to where I came from, which is respected. That's what we fought for. You know what I mean? And then you got others like, well, I got it here. I'm good. You know what I mean? And you don't fuck with us, we don't fuck with you. And they established theirs, and you got to respect them as well. Paul Cuffey, or Cuffey, 1759 to 1870, was a successful Quaker ship owner and activist in Boston. His parents were Asante, African, and Wampango, Native American heritage. I'm sorry if I didn't say the Wampanoag. I'm sorry if I didn't say that right. Heritage. He advocated settling freed black American slaves in Africa and gained support from the British government, free blacks leaders in the United States, and members of Congress to take immigrants to the British colony of Sierra Leone in 1815. He financed a trip himself. The following year, Cuffey took 38 American blacks to Freetown, Sierra Leone. He died in 1817 before undertaking other voyages. Cuffey led the groundwork for the American Colonization Society. So, Like I said, I was gonna get into what's his name, Marcus Garvey, and how a lot of people give him the credit where actually Paul Cuffey was that man. The only now the inner difference between Cuffey and um Marcus Garvey also goes down to the fact that, remember, Marcus Garvey never even went to Africa. Cuffey did. Cuffey was Asante and Native American. He did not embrace Europeanism. So he worked with the Europeans, whereas Marcus Garvey acknowledged being European and through Ireland. And so he can come with like a lot of Jamaicans, due to the import of the Irish as well. So that's where a lot of that comes in. But Cuffy was not with it. He's like, yo, I'm Asante and well, I'm Native American heritage. You know what I mean? And so once again, we have this freedman with what? This two, this Native American and this black, or this white and this black complexity to him. So if you ask them, they can say, no, I'm not. And two, you listen to Jay-Z and you go, well, still a nigga. Because white America told you they didn't give a fuck. If they saw you as black, you wasn't going to be good here. That's just that. Efforts to relocate free blacks other than to Africa. Although little remembered the ultimate nothing came to them, there were a number of other proposals for relocating former slaves to somewhere much closer. One option discussed was the settler. Oh, this is out in oh yeah, this is the Louisiana one. No, this is the Laconia one, right? Um, Former somewhere closer. One option discussed we was settling them in a new, sparsely populated Western territory acquired in the Louisiana Purchase, right? Or on the Pacific coast, creating a black reservation similar to the Indian reservations. Haiti also, yeah, this is when they went to Haiti, right? There was an island, and one of the island, Haiti is an island, but there are islands around Haiti as well. And what was his name? Morgan, Captain Morgan. Like one of the places where he was hiding, I guess, like his treasures and stuff. They actually went to Haiti and attempted to buy that land and send blacks there. So the point is that I keep saying is remember, the Back to Africa movement was largely in part by a white front to get you out of the country. So this white front to this day still exists because Freemasonry still exists. These brothers are still under Prince Hall. And so, yeah, when you see all of these street organizations, they do not understand that there is a group of people that will stand right by you, don't see themselves as you, so it won't be a problem bumping you off. So the first thing you're supposed to do is ask somebody, are you black? Do you see yourself as African? And I mean as children. And so if you around a certain group of people and they tell you no, they not that, automatically separate yourself from them. You can be friendly to them, but do not befriend them because they are not your friends. Because once you say you identify as black, they see you as a problem because they need you off the land. So when reparations and all of that come, you can get out of there. Then they can go back to claiming their rights because they're freemen and this is what the paper said and you see the reference. But the reference of freedmen are about black people. So they're claiming to be freedmen, but they're telling you they're not black. But they're basing their freedmen off of coming through these vessels. Right? With me, I'm a runaway slave. They'll look down on me because they went through the legal system to get their freedom. Well, you should have ran, motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? Don't tell me about what you went through. You know? So, don't tell me nothing. I don't really want to hear. So me, my thing is I understand the complexities between our people. I understand that we have a group within us who does not see themselves as black. They will relinquish that part and associate themselves with any other, whether it be the native, whether it be the Europeans, they don't care. Just don't call me black. And are they setting that up for you to relinquish your blackness? Meaning that it's reverse psychology. You're this, so you send them out, oh, you're Moors, you're Moroccan, you're all of this. You relinquish all of that. We kill you off, you blood, you Crips, you gangster disciples, you vice lords, you all of that. Yeah, everything else. So that way you can kill yourselves off, and then that small group of people remain and claim it all. Because they didn't see themselves as that, and they embrace their European counterparts, their European fathers and mothers' ideology. Because how do you know? Because once I go into Liberia, which I did already, right? We're going to understand the system that was set up. This Freemasonic system, classations, and all of that came out of this system. And these, we're not blackers because we are half breeders and we come from out of here, went into these places and treated them people in the same fashion that their white parents did to their black parents. Yeah, we gonna get into it. We gonna this right here. Let me see if this is the one. Cause we still inside, this organization, the ACS. The ACS had its origins in 1816 when Charles Fenton Mercer, a Federalist member of the Virginia General Assembly, discovered accounts of early legislative debates on black colonization in the wake of Gabriel's processor, a rebellion, right? Mercer pushed the state to support the idea. One of his political contacts in Washington City, John Caldwell, it turned in turn contacted Reverend Robert Friendly and his brother-in-law and the Presbyterian minister who endorsed the plan. This was all hatched out of fear. You got to understand. All right? Pardon me. Pardon me. Right? You got to understand. The Haitians, revolution, that whole Caribbean islands, because, yeah, we can say the Haitians broke free, right? But those areas was putting in work. There was aidings and abettings from those areas with the Haitians, as well as the Haitians aiding and abetting. And let's not get into the fact of the Haitians turned around and then enslaved the Dominicans. And so the Dominicans pushed them, back to the corner of that island. That's how you see what you see there. But that's a whole different story. All right? Discover where we at? On December 21st, 1816, the society was officially established at the Davis Hotel in Washington, D.C. Among the society's supporters was, Mercer from Virginia. We had Clay from Kentucky. We had Randolph from Virginia. We had Lee from Virginia. We had Washington from Virginia. Slaveholders in the Virginia prominent region in the 1820s and 1830s comprised many of the most prominent members, slave-owning United States presidents. Thomas Jefferson, James Monroe, James Madison were among its supporters. Madison served as the society president in the early 1830s. And the inauguration meeting, society members to support the suggested the colony be established in Africa and take free people of color, most of whom had been born free, away from the United States. Right? It says established in Africa to take free people of color, most of whom had been born free. So, Mr. Freeman couldn't even see that he was getting played as well. We had a group, like I said, that sent to Sierra Leone, sent to Cameroon, sent to Liberia, right? Because these were the established new countries, right? Sent there. While you still have a group left behind that want more gone, because they signed up with Massa. What's that movie again? Where it was the black dude and he tried to tell him he was a Mason after a killing and all, and they didn't give a fuck. That shit don't work here, homie. Because your job is only to keep these people in order. You jump out of pocket in any other fucking way and you gonna get it. That's what they didn't realize. They thought that, okay, since I helped with white America, that I would be good. Little did they know. Right, so this is gonna be. I'm gonna end up after like this break right here, and I'm gonna come back when next time. But I'm gonna show you the establishing of these freemen in another land, so you can see the damage. Right, and so then when we come back here and we hear this hatred for Africans and African American people within a community that look like us but will tell you they not black, you need to understand where this logic comes from. The we're not black logic. You have to understand where that comes from. It comes from, well, I embrace this over here. And you can hear it in their conversations and their speeches, right? So, let me see something here. Okay, now we still moving. All right. Some of that's in Spanish and shit like that. So, meeting, society, okay. And inaugurate, at the inaugural meeting of society, revered Finley suggested that the colony be established in Africa to take free people of color, right, boom, boom, in the state. Finley meant to colonize with the consent of free people of color residing in our country, in Africa or such other places as Congress may deem most expedient. So you have a white people telling you where, hey, if we can afford to send you there, whatever, this is what we're gonna do, but we want you out of here because y'all are becoming a problem. So I tell people that a system was set up because they saw us as a threat through our rebellion. I got a whole different series on all of these different subjects. So this is me being able to just like basically take the nuts and bolts and put them on to the side and go, okay, this is what we got. Even though this is still breakdowns long, you know what I mean? But you have to understand the complexity of the mindset of the people and the facilitators who set it up, you know, through this superiority complex and inferiority complex placed within the people, right? Escape and depressing their value. Where we go, free blacks, many of whom um, had been in the United States for generations, also encouraged and assisted slaves to escape. So where it goes, where we at? No, my fault. Organized branches, there's a branch throughout the United States. Finley meant colonizing the people residing in Africa or such places as concerned. Or the organization established branches throughout the United States, mostly in the South. It was instrumental in establishing a colony of Liberia. So, as you understand, Freemasonry will go into get the recruiting so then they can find the people to set up their other plan. So, you become a tool. That's why I tell people learn how you are becoming a tool and them to set up a whole new agenda with you and you thinking that it's you, but this was set up way before you. You just came along when the teachings, and so you fine tuned it. It's like communism. You got Marxism and then you got Leninism. Like it's just a thought, and then you just keep adding on, and as time goes on, you have somebody else who takes that reign. It's the same thing because that's where this is all headed to anyway. This is all based on that anyway. Established. The AC was founded by groups otherwise opposed to each other and on issues of slavery. Slaveholders such as those in the Maryland branch and elsewhere believed that um, yeah, so-called reparations was the way to remove free blacks from slave societies and avoid slave rebellions. Understand that there was a time when they was like, yo, listen, give them reparations and so they can go somewhere and reestablish. But they was like, nah, we ain't with that. The ACE was founded by a group of otherwise opposed to each other. So that's what I'm saying. You have this group coming together and you take the pieces, and that's the part that everybody moves forward with. Freemasonry, right? That so-called reparations was the way to remove free blacks from slave societies and avoid slave rebellions. Free blacks, many of whom had been in the United States for generations, also encouraged and assisted slaves to escape the depressing their value. Every attempt by the South to aid the colonization society to send free colored people to Africa enhanced the value of the slave left on the soil. The society appeared to hold contradictory ideas. Free blacks should be removed because they could not benefit America. On the other hand, free blacks would prosper and thrive under their own leadership in another land. On the other hand, a coalition made up of mostly evangelistical Quakers, philanthropists, and abolitionists supported abolition of slavery. They wanted slaves to be free and believed blacks would face better chances of freedom in Africa than the United States, since they were not welcome in the South or North. The two opposed groups found common ground in support of what they called reparations. So we get into ADOS, right? We finish off here. This is where I'm not even going to read anymore. I just want you to see this mentality laid out for you. So you understand the abolitionists, right? Those who wanted to abolish slavery. Was it for their personal benefit? Was these societies a giant conglomerate? You had Europe in it, you had the Caribbean, right? These are people who got together in different lands, but still at that same time frame was moving blacks out of those lands. So that goes to prove that this was a union, a setup to get you. And so if they had the union, we also have those on the inside. There are people on the inside who worked with that system. You don't have to like it. You can argue it. You can act like, nah. Yeah, this is it. This is how this is going down. You don't have to like it. And you don't have to realize that we have two enemies. We have an enemy from the inside and we have an enemy from the outside. The enemy from the inside is way more dangerous because if you don't establish who he is, he'll tell you he's not black. And so once you say you black, if you feel comfortable around him, that's on you. That you will never be able to get that poison from out because everybody is gonna, within your circle, is still gonna see y'all as the same. So then again, what is black on black crime? Is there black on black crime? To the outside of America, to white America, yes. But inwardly, how do we know? Because me as a black person, I'm looking at it as black on black crime. But if there's a consensus that says we're not black, we're Moors, we're Nubians, we're this, we're that, all of these Freemasonic groups, to destroy you. This system was set up to get you the fuck out of here. It was set up to get you out of here. And it set up a system where the people on the inside would not have to look at you as the same, and so they could aid and abet with it. They could set up gangs. They could set up, these religious, spiritual, turn you gay, turn you feminine, whatever way for population control. If they can't get you off the land, they will control your population because they have always witnessed and acknowledged that if we came to a certain number, it was over. So every time we reach a certain good number, the gang intensifies. Now we gay and we're feminine and we're doing chocking and stuffing motherfucking crystals up our asses and color coding, and all of that is triggers to train you and control you through Freemasonry. Because Freemasonry is a system based on chicanery. Chicanery is, we out of here, for political gain and other financial situations. Nonetheless, we'll be back for part 3 later. Until then, peace.